So next up, let's look at key commands and this toolbar. We've covered these first bunch already. You can open an automation panel that I didn't cover in the previous video because that gives you a lot of commonly used automation, another way to access them, different to the tracks I showed you. But I want to show you this next button, the auto scroll. Now, if I zoom in quite a lot here and I disable that, then is now recording the same playback line goes off screen and it's gone. This just follows the playback head. So now that I have it enabled, let's zoom in again, is now recording the same boom microphone that it keeps up with your playback line and kind of scrolls with it. Now it has a stationary cursor mode, is now recording the same boom microphone that you're busy hearing. It kind of keeps the cursor in the middle and it moves your workspace, or the way I had it, where the page scroll, it kind of pages to the next page, depending on what you want to do. So that's your auto scroll option. Now this next block, that's the same block you get when you right click on a clip. And these are your most standard buttons. And here, this is really the first key commands that you want to memorize. Now Cubase and Nuendo are not as key command or shortcut heavy as other programs, similar to Reaper actually. You can really get away with knowing a few basic ones and that takes you very far. Pro Tools is quite different there. You really need to learn a whole keyboard full to be able to work quite fast. So you'll see if you buy one of those shortcut keyboards or overlays for Cubase, there are fewer shortcuts and it's intentionally done that way. But the ones that you really want are the ones that correspond to this toolbar, and they line up to your number keys on your normal keyboard, not the number pad. They have different features, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, those ones do some basic things, and they correspond mostly to these tools in order. So the first three, 1, 2, and 3, that gives you 1, your object selector, 2, your range selector, and 3, your scissor tool. So 1 we've covered, that's makes you drag things. 2, if you want to just select a range, which you might want to treat with some offline process. And 3, if you want to cut at a very specific point here. Now you might notice that my cursor has disappeared, my playback line. I think that is an unfortunate side effect of the screen recording software I'm using, because usually there's this nice line that shows you exactly where you're going to cut. And there it is back. So if I want to cut there and there and there, that's why the scissor tool is quite useful. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Number 4, that is your glue tool. So if I want to glue those cuts back together, that's quite useful. And 5, I use very seldomly, that's an erase tool. But I just select the clip and hit delete. So that does exactly the same thing. 6, I also don't use all that much. That's your magnifier, your zoom tool. So you can click and drag where you want to zoom into, and you can also use modifier keys to do something else. But I do most of my zooming using the standard selector tool with the command modifier. So I don't use 6 all that much, but 7 and 9 I use all the time. In fact, I use 1, 3, 7, and 9 the most. 1, selector, 3, cut, 7, mute. So that mutes that clip, because when I do post-production, I have multiple microphones lined up. I don't delete them off the timeline. Maybe I use them later. I just mute the ones that I don't want to use at that given time. So you can see with everything deselected, here's a grayed out muted clip over there. And that is number 7, our mute tool, and toggling back to 1 to drag stuff. And then 9, I say I also use 9 as our same preview tool. Wherever I click, even if it's muted, is now a phone that you busy, it plays it back. So if you've got a big project that you've interchanged, a big AAF, you can, with a 9 tool, click on stuff that's muted and quickly figure out what is that clip. Do I want to use that somewhere else? So that's why I use it quite a lot. Now I did skip some. 8 gives you your pen tool. Now you could draw blank clips. which you do use for some things, but that's also the tool you use to draw some automation. So for this mode, it doesn't really apply. And then your comp tool, that doesn't have a number associated, those lanes that I mentioned. If you have multiple lanes enabled, the comp tool tells you which part of which lane you want to use at any given point. So I actually usually put a shortcut in for that. I use my +- key. That one, that funny sign, I enable that or set that as a custom command for the comp tool when I do a lot of track or lane-based dialogue recording, like big narrative scripts. I'm going to skip time warp and time grip and line for now, and want to show you what it means when these toolbars have this little notch there. That means you have more than one option for that specific button. Now, if you look at my play tool here, by default, it same boom microphone clicks and plays where I click. Now, if I click and hold, it gives me different options. If I scrub, now you can scrub through your audio to find the spot that you want. And the same applies for any of these other tools that have more than one option. So I'm going to go back to my play tool here, and I want to go show you on the object selector tool. Now, similarly to clicking and holding, where you've got these three options, I can also keep on pressing the shortcut and it cycles through those three options. And it also changes the cursor picture for you to show you which one you're at. So normal cursor, that's object selection, moving stuff around. And especially for this tool, just changing the length of the clip. Now, if I hit 1 again, now it sizes the content. So have a look at what happens. The contents move on that clip, even when I'm dragging the kind of side trim part of the clip. And if I go to the third option, that is time stretching. That's similar to holding in Shift and dragging a clip in Reaper. So this is normal speed, recording the same, but if I now drag it faster, recording the same boom microphone that you're busy hearing. Very nice algorithm in terms of time stretching. And you do that not with a normal key modifier and dragging, you have to be in time stretch mode on your selector tool. And as I said, you can cycle through them by pressing 1 a few times. And I use that quite a lot. If I want to create variations, say if I only have 3 of the same footsteps, I'll time stretch them slightly, I'll pitch shift them slightly, and between that and maybe fading one differently, you can get a few variations out of that same sound effect that you've got recorded. So those are your basic tools. They come in extremely handy, and if you start learning those key commands, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and as I said, 1, object select, 3, cut, 7, mute, and 9, listen, I find that if you know those ones, you can get very, very far.